And we are live here in the Storycraft Cafe. I am your host, Hank Garner, and today I'm really excited to welcome Jenny Morris to the show. She has a brand new book that just released here in the States, anyway, yesterday. And I'm trying to pop it up on the screen, and it's not working for some. There we go. An
There it is.
ethical guide to murder is out brand new in the States as of yesterday. If you are watching from around the world, it has probably been available for you for a little while now. But an ethical guide to murder, what a I hesitate to say fun book, but it really is, and I have thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I know that other people will too. Um, Welcome to the show, Jenny.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely, Jenny. Before we get into the nitty gritty of talking about the book and your writing career, we like to start with a fun question to just kind of set the tone. And one question that I love to ask people is, "What is the first thing that you wrote that made you feel like a writer?"
Oh, I think I came to writing a bit late. I actually, when I speak to other writers, they all started when they were kids, and I always feel a bit strange that I didn't. I
Yeah.
started writing when I was studying psychology, and I started doing short stories just to kind of because what I was doing was quite dry, to be honest, and I needed some kind of fun escape. And I think the first thing I wrote that I thought was actually reasonably good was a short story I wrote that then got kind of shortlisted for a competition, and I thought, oh, this is a proper piece of writing that other people might like, and then I started to feel really excited about properly learning the craft and taking it all a bit more seriously.
Yeah. Um, is An ethical guide to murder the first novel that you attempted? A lot of people will have what we call desk drawer novels or trunk novels, where you try your hand at it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you learn from that, and then you move on to the next one. And then some people, the first thing that they try, the craft of story just seems to work for them. Is this the first book that you attempted?
I did do one, I tried one before this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was when I was studying, and it was just one of those things where it's all the mistakes you read about later and
Right.
realize, like characters looking in the mirror and describing themselves. I didn't realize that that was a really embarrassing writing thing. So yeah, it definitely desk drawers. I did finish the novel, and
Yeah.
I did a writing course where I was working on it. But in hindsight, I'm very glad that it's not available for anyone to see.
I know that feeling. I know that feeling. We're gonna come back around to kind of your path to getting published and all that, but I wanted to kind of jump into the book kind of straight away. An ethical guide to murder. The title itself is provocative. Without ever cracking the cover, you get the feeling that you're playing with presuppositions, with how we think about um, the morality of the world and how people are expected to behave. So, before we even get into the really intricate plot that you've come up with, you're already starting to kind of toy with us a little bit. The idea of exploring uh, morally gray characters, situations that are, um, you know, kind of not what we would I guess what this is what I would just tell you what I was thinking when I started reading it is that everyone says, when asked, how would you respond or react to this situation, and we all say that, well, I would do this because I'm a good, upstanding, upright person that would always do the right thing, until you actually have the power. And then, things you can start it can be a slippery slope where this thing leads to this thing, and all of a sudden you're behaving in ways that you would never think that you would, all because you had the power to do it. Were 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 those things, were you kind of wrestling with those kind of questions and items before you started writing the book, or did they come out as the plot started to develop?
Yeah, I think it's funny saying about the title as well, because the title I actually came up with really early, like within the first few chapters of the book. And I think it was really helpful because it was like having a reminder of what I wanted to work on, like
Right.
just in front of me. So
Yeah.
it kept me quite focused. Um, yeah, and I think when I came up with the idea before I started writing about this, this girl who could save people, but only by killing others and kind of transferring life. And I kept asking people, just friends, what they would do with this power. And I just found it so interesting that so many people kind of said either they wouldn't use it ever,
Right.
um, which I think is probably the most moral course of action you could take, arguably. Because then, of course, you're letting nature taking its course and removing yourself from it. But does that
Right.
mean you're not kind of responsible for what happens? Um, but I think in reality, if people could get away with doing this, no, Thea's power works that absolutely no one can know what she's doing. It's completely
Yeah.
invisible. There's no consequence to it, really. She can kill absolutely anyone that she can touch with no real consequence. And I just think that would be so difficult once you'd started to know when to stop. Um,
Right.
yeah, so that was the interest of the novel for me. That's why I wanted to write it. And I think in reality, a lot of people would not tell anyone they would do it. But
Right. Yeah, would I do it? Maybe. Would I tell people I did? Absolutely not.
yeah.
So you had this idea kind of early on in the novel. Did well, first off, are you a planner or a pantser? We love to divide people into these two camps, in writing. Do you plan the novel out before you start writing, or do you write and kind of see where the novel goes and adjust your plan along the way?
I think I'm really both, like
Yeah.
completely both. And I like to start once I've got the character sorted. I feel like I can't figure anything out until I've got the character worked out. And I like to write basically as far as I can until I get
Yeah.
stuck and I don't really know what's happening. And then I'll stop and I'll get the Excel spreadsheet out and I will completely plan it.
Yeah.
But then I'll find as I start writing, then that doesn't work and then I'll just follow the character again. So I just literally flip back and forth until I get stuck.
Do do you have any idea how the book is going to end when you begin?
I think this one actually had a completely different ending
Really?
originally, which I'm yeah, so I did have an idea in my head. I thought that's how I wanted it to end.
Yeah.
And then when I got there, it just fell flat. It didn't feel like it
Mm,
emotionally kind of came full circle, which I hope it now does. I felt like it did, and I felt pleased with it. And yeah, when I wrote this ending, I just thought, yes, that's how I wanted it.
gotcha. Gotcha. Well, we won't spoil the ending for everybody because um but that brings about a great question, is because I've heard some writers say, especially people that are um, heavy pantsers, they'll say something like, "Well, if the ending isn't surprising for the writer, then it won't be for the reader." I mean, you could argue, whether that's true or not, but um, since it did kind of unfold like that for you, do you feel like that it is a satisfying ending in that it's difficult to kind of unravel from, when you first start reading and you think, "Oh, I know how this is going to end," and I promise you don't by the end. But do you kind of commiserate with that feeling of keeping the reader guessing along the way?
Yeah, I think when you're writing, there's nothing more exciting when then something unexpected happens and you get to
Right.
write it. It feels so fun and like not to be cringe about it, but like the magic of writing. You actually feel like, oh wow, this is just happening and I'm just kind of here.
Yeah.
Um, I love that feeling. And I think it comes across. Like I think the bits where I'm aware that's happened, people then mention those bits to me. So I think there must be something that just transfers. Um, yeah, and it just comes across as maybe more authentic, that's how you wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah. How long did it take you to write this novel?
I think I was on and off maybe 2 or 3 years. I took a
Yeah.
break for it for quite a long time. I think I put it in a drawer for about a year, and I was working full time, so yeah, it took a while. Yeah, 2 or 3 years.
Gotcha. Did you I know you said that before you started writing the book, you would ask people these, kind of moral questions. What would you do? When you kind of settled on this idea and you started pursuing this story, did you continue to get people's input? Like, and did people's reactions to what you were reading, did that have any bearing on the story you were writing?
I tend when I'm writing not to share it with too many people. I like
Yeah.
to just kind of write it. Um, I do share it with a few people, mainly I think when you're writing a character that's doing very morally grey slash, murderous, slightly evil things,
Right.
I wanted her to be likable enough, and it was more wanting people's opinions on kind of how awful she was being, and when I needed to kind of, because I wanted it to get to a point where you did feel real judgment for her, um, but not until later in the book. So
Yeah.
it's kind of making sure she was relatable enough and kind of saying, yeah, how much do you hate her right now? Do you still understand why she's doing that at least? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I did for that, definitely.
Well, Thea, your main character, she makes some morally questionable choices through. That's what the entire book is about. Um, Yet, as a reader, I find myself rooting for her, and I find myself on her side more times than not. Does that surprise you at all, or do you think that we as readers look for um, ways to connect with characters that do things that are off the beaten path? Like how do you feel about readers connecting with your character even when they're not doing what we think they should?
Yeah, I mean, like even though Thea does some really awful things in the book,
Yeah.
I still love her. And, I really get that some people might not,
Yeah.
and she goes too far at points, but I think that's the fun of kind of seeing them on the edge the whole way through the book.
Yeah.
And although, of course, it's not relatable, but she's literally killing people, um,
Right.
I think some of her thoughts.
Hopefully most of us cannot relate,
Yeah,
in
I
a
hope
very
so.
real way with that, but who knows?
But I think kind of the motivations and the urges she
Yeah.
has are relatable still. Um, and like people think, okay, what would I do with that power if I could
Yeah.
just kill without consequence? And more
Right.
like the more petty aspects where she figures out she can take like a few days or months off people rather than killing them. I don't think that's a spoiler. She figures it
Yeah.
out pretty quickly.
Right.
And that's different because it's not as evil as killing someone, but it is, you're sort of stealing people's life and shortening it. But yeah, I find that kind of pettiness actually very relatable.
Yeah. Sadly, but yes. Yeah. One thing that you do very well and that I really loved about this book is the way that you balance very difficult and often dark topics with a little bit of humor. And I myself tend to navigate the world in very much the same way, that when something is difficult, or I'm going to crack a joke, I'm going to try to lighten the situation. And as a writer, I find that when you're writing passages that are difficult, intense, if you can give the reader a chance to catch their breath, to laugh a little bit, it ratchets the anxiety down. And then when you come back to the deep and difficult topics, it almost punches harder because you've allowed them to let their guard down a little bit. And so you take the reader on this emotional roller coaster instead of just leaving their adrenaline pegged out at 10 all the time. The up and down is really what readers show up for. We want you to take us on a journey and not just redline, our emotions the whole time. In drafting this, was that something that you consciously thought about? Is that just how you naturally react? Were you thinking about how the reader must be reacting, weaving in and out of these situations? And I know that was like 18 questions, so I apologize.
Yeah, no, I think I completely agree with everything. In terms of if it's conscious, like I definitely didn't set out to try and make it funny or to use humor, to be honest. It just felt very natural. And I think maybe like I was brought up in a family that's kind of like, if you don't laugh, you cry, or maybe you should just do those things together, and that's okay. So I think they really go together, and they can even. I think the humor helps you kind of cope with the darker bits
Yeah,
in life, but also in stories. And I find it difficult to read something if it's just absolutely unrelenting darkness.
right.
Like, I need that. I need the lightness.
Yeah,
Um, and I just think it makes it much more palatable and enjoyable. And exactly, it hits differently once
it
you've kind of
does.
gone from, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other side of that, though, is that if you use too much humor and you constantly make fun of everything, then it can come across as silly. And so there is I'm I don't mean to say that you're constantly scrutinizing every paragraph, that wonder if you're crossing a line, but I think you can feel when something has gone a little too far this way or that way. Um, Specifically in your editing, when that first draft is finished, and then you're reading back over your work to clean up things. Are you looking for uh, you know segments of the book where this is a little too serious, this is a little too silly? Like, how do you balance those?
Yeah, I think there's nothing worse, right, in a really intense, especially like a really emotionally intense scene, if someone just randomly makes a joke, um,
Right.
kind of ruin it. I think it's tempting, especially when you've decided you are going to use humor and you've got a funny character, is resisting the urge to do that all the time, and sometimes just let something be dark. Um, and especially when it's something, yeah, you really want that to land. It's just watching out, but you've not done it for the sake of it, that it feels natural. And I think that helps when you're not consciously thinking, I'm trying to make this funny.
Yeah.
You're trying to write a good story, and at times it feels natural for it to be funny. And more just the scenario. Like, I think part of humor is just kind of surprising, or like outrageous situations, and you don't have to, like, people will get it. You don't have to like ram it home with a joke or anything like that.
Right. Ye But then, I think readers are more apt to forgive bad behavior if they're laughing, sadly.
Yeah.
It's that's kind of part of human nature. If, we'll look the other way if we get a good chuckle out of it. So, um, in writing this book, when you got to the end of it and you had wrapped up this story with this character, um, did how you felt about like when you first thought of the scenario in the beginning, and well, this is an interesting thing, let me write about it and see how it turns out. Did you change your own thoughts about it by the end, or did it solidify what you already thought? Like we think about how readers approach something, and do we change their mind at all, even if if that's something we're trying to do, but how does it change the writer by the end of going through an experience like this?
Yeah, I think it did change a bit. I think actually, even I think I was a bit arrogant at the start of the book, thinking, yeah, I know how I'd use this power. Obviously, I'd use it ethically,
Right.
because I'm a good person.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we have this, like, I'm a psychologist in my other life, and we all have this bias where we think we're like better drivers than other people, we're
Mm,
better looking, we're funnier, and we all have this kind of we all think we're above average, basically, at pretty much
Yeah.
everything, which obviously can't be true. And we think we're more moral than other people. Um, and I just find that so interesting. It was part of what I was interested in the book. And definitely by the end of it, I felt very humbled to a new level of this is so complicated to create a ethical guide to murder. Um, yeah, I no longer want to be anywhere near this power.
Right.
I think it did change it, and I reached a more accepting level of there's just no way to do this.
Yeah.
So I solved my own question, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned your other life, your day job. You were Dr. Jenny. In your other career. Um, was this a difficult thing to pursue while having a day job like you do? That, or was this a way um, to sort of process some things that you're thinking about in your day job? My day job is nothing like your day job, but I do get questions that come up in conversations, and a lot of times I'll use my writing to kind of explore how I really feel about it. And was there a similar experience for you?
Yeah, I think I get lots of ideas constantly from psychology as a psychologist. So I'm constantly reading things, and I just think, how would that play out? So it's a fun way for me to think about things. Um, it's obviously, yeah, practically difficult to find the time when you're busy, as I'm sure like everyone knows. But when it's quite different, I think that's when it's helpful. So when my day job is research and work and feels very logical, so it's really nice to have a creative outlet. And I also felt that fed in because it helped me clarify my ideas, so it helped my day job too. So I think they
Hmm.
go together.
Yeah. When you first started working on this book, did you have the desire to publish a novel? Like, a lot of us will start writing as a hobby, just to scratch an itch, if you will. Some people begin with the explicit desire, I want to publish a book. When you began writing, did you have those goals in mind, or did you at one point say, well, shoot, I have a book now, what do I do with it?
Yeah, I think when I first started and I was just doing short stories, I had
Yeah.
no goals of publishing them. I think my mind, because in psychology research we publish whatever we write, so I immediately thought, okay, what do I do with it? I've got these stories, like they have to go somewhere.
Right.
Um, and then when I started writing the first novel, I did want to publish that one, even though I'm happy it's not published. And I did was going to take it a bit more seriously. So yeah, by the time I got to write an ethical guide, I did want to publish it from the beginning. But I also wrote it because it was kind of I would have written it anyway, and it was special to me.
Yeah. So when you finished the book, what did you do? Like, where did you start thinking about pursuing publishing and all of that? Like, what was the process like for you?
I think I had a really lucky process, and I went just down the very traditional route of going, going out to agents on the slush pile, just sending out very hopefully, kind of cold approaching people, kind of 10 agents at a time, and not getting anywhere with it for quite a while. Then finally, I must send it out to like can't remember like 50 agents or something, which I know
Wow.
still is loads for like some people have done more. But then I found someone who just completely got the idea and loved it. She she emailed me to request the full manuscript. It actually went to my junk folder and I didn't see it.
Mm. Oh my.
So then I got a phone call from her, which just completely out of the blue. I was at work and I was so taken aback by it. And I think she thought I was being quite cool, so not replying for a few days, whereas I just literally hadn't seen it. Um, and yeah, so she signed with her very quickly. I absolutely loved her. She's fantastic. And then we did a few edits to tighten it up, and then she sent it out quite quickly. And then, yeah, the actual publishing deal happened within maybe a month or two of getting the agent. That was very quick.
That's very quick. That's very quick.
Yeah.
Um, what sort of edits did you go through, and how did you, as the writer, um, how did you approach those edits? Was it a scary process? I think that when we write, it's a very personal experience.
Mm.
Like you said, that you have a tendency not to share your work very much while you're writing. It's very much a solitary experience until it's not. At some point, it's no longer a solitary experience. You share this work, and then other voices start coming in, and either offering editorial critique, or all of that, and then it reaches readers, and then you get feedback, and it is very much no longer a solitary experience. But how did you approach, hopefully, being a psychologist, you had wonderful tools to use to deal with how other people see your work, but still it's daunting when someone else reads it and then starts offering critiques, and suggesting changes and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the actual editing process I actually really like, and I
Yeah.
think although I like the writing process because it's just your baby at that point, and you can do
Right.
whatever you like, I actually am quite ready to get feedback on it. And yeah, I think because maybe from my work when we're publishing research, it goes through a phenomenal amount of edits,
Mhm.
like soul crushing. So I was quite used to it, to be honest. And it's you just learn to realize all your ideas, they're really not that special as you may have thought, and it's in service of making it a clearer end product and be
Yeah.
quite critical about it. So I think I was quite good at thinking it like that and try and reframe it as this isn't what I've done wrong. This is an opportunity to make it better.
Mhm.
That really helps where you just think this is a good thing. And actually, this is like an expert in their field that is giving me their time and helping me make this better. So I like that phase of it. I find it much scarier when it's readers, because especially if it's something I hadn't thought about too much, there's no changing it at this point. It is the end product. So I can't use that trick of this is getting better. At that point, I'm just like, I hope people like it.
Yeah. Um, when you finished the book, and then started submitting the book to agents, and then your agent to publishers, um, how did you view the book that you had written and then attempted to market? Did you think of it as a satire, as dark comedy, as thriller? Like when you start thinking about where this is going to live in the bookstore, so that you can then describe it to someone to interest them in it. How do you start kind of breaking down your own work, and placing it where it's going to live?
I think it's really hard, and I got it wrong. So I was pitching it as kind of book club fiction or speculative
Mm,
fiction. I think I tried
okay.
both. And then when I met my agent, it has murder in the title. That should have been a clue. But she said, "This is a crime book. Um, are you okay with us pitching it like that?" And I was a little confused, to be honest, to start with, and I wasn't aware of how much kind of just diverse ideas there are in crime. It's such a
Right.
genre. Whereas I was thinking more it was police procedural and murder mystery kind of thing. Um,
Mhm.
so then when she sent me loads of stuff to show me kind of it was absolutely what I was writing, then I was really excited about doing it. And that's when I think it actually clicked into place, and we were able to sell it reasonably quickly. So yeah, I think it's really important, and I definitely got it wrong. And it's everything I write is very murdery, so I love crime.
Very murdery. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that our culture in general is changing, uh, therefore the art that we like to consume is changing to reflect our taste? For instance, a book like An Ethical Guide to Murder is a little dark. It's also a little snarky, and a little tongue in cheek. Um, uh, uh, you know, like it's definitely a response to the time that we live in. Do you feel that is true? And could a book like this have published 40 years ago?
Yeah, I think no one would have liked it, and it just wouldn't have resonated back then. It
Right.
just wasn't. It wouldn't have reflected, how people felt, and I think it's almost a feeling that the world's more outrageous and quite dark, and all you can do is kind of
Right.
view it, and you literally see things happen, you just think, of course, that's what's happening, and you have that snarky attitude, or maybe I think it's quite like a millennial thing as well.
Mm,
It's a kind of social media kind of attitude that you see a lot, and yeah, I think books always kind of, I guess, reflect how we're feeling, and that's what people
yeah.
connect with. It feels familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, when someone finishes this book and they close the back cover, do you hope that they've had a moment of reflection to think about how they would respond in a situation like this, and that they would challenge how they respond to ethical dilemmas, moral challenges? Or do you just hope they're entertained? Or does it have to be one or the other?
I think both, and I hope they just find it fun, and all
Yeah.
the silly things that are in there. I hope they enjoy that for the sake of it. But yeah, I hope people come away with it thinking maybe like a bit more empathy for how difficult these kind of decisions would be,
Right.
and just a bit more. I think it would be good if we all kind of had a bit more kind of humility to our own ability to make to make difficult decisions like this. Something I kind of There's a game in the book. It's called How Much to Eat a Human Toe. And it's a game I always play with people about how much would I have to pay you to do this outrageous thing.
Mm,
And people a lot of the time will start by saying, "I wouldn't do that. That's disgusting and unethical. It's horrible."
right.
Um, and they wouldn't do it for money. But then suddenly you can say, okay, but what if it was to save your family? What if it was to save a life? Um,
Mm,
then they would. So you've got a little bit of kind of, not hypocrisy, but a gap here.
right.
Um, but then I like to point out, well, if I paid you £1 billion, you could save a lot of people's lives. So you're actually just kind of, by not thinking about this in enough detail, you've made like a snap decision. And obviously that's a more silly example of like the ethical dilemmas in the book.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to summarize it. And yeah, I hope people come away just thinking a little bit more about how difficult it is to make those decisions.
Well, the book is An Ethical Guide to Murder, and it is available everywhere now. If you have a great local bookstore, please go visit them and give them your business and pick up a copy of An Ethical Guide to Murder. If you don't have a great local bookstore, we're going to put links to it in the show notes where you can grab it from Amazon or from Audible. I have not gotten a chance to listen to the audiobook yet, but I plan to do that over the weekend. What do you think of the audiobook production? Have you had a chance to dig into it yet?
Yeah, I think it's beautifully recorded. I love the audio. I find my own book a little bit difficult to listen to just
A
because,
little weird, isn't it?
yeah, I think the audio, it creates like a level of distance where it really feels like a book rather than something I wrote. Um,
Right.
so I find it a little hard sometimes, but it's very beautifully put together.
Well, what's coming up next from you, Jenny? If we know anything about the publishing industry, this book has been off your desk for months now. And are you thinking of new stories, or are you pondering new uh, ethical quandaries to put us through?
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I'm working on my second book at the moment, so I'm right in the middle of it. I was thinking about it earlier when we were talking about endings because I don't know how it's going to end yet. I've got a few different ones, but it's a crime fantasy again. Lots of ethical dilemmas. It's about a family who basically find out the world was going to end, but in 5 years' time, and it's what they do to survive.
Oh, oh. See, when you say that, I immediately have a thought, oh, I would do this. And then I start going, no, Oh, ooh, oh, I can see where that. Oh, so difficult, so difficult. Um, I love it. I love the new book, and I can't wait for everyone to pick up their copy and check it out. Jenny, if folks are just discovering you and want to follow along for any news coming up, or just to go on this wild ride with you, is there a place online where they can follow you and stay abreast of news coming up and such?
Yeah, I post lots on social media, so Instagram and Blue Sky are the best places to find me.
Okay, great. We'll link those in the show notes as well. Um, Jenny, this has been so much fun chatting. Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.